Legacy Gala. Your support and presence here tonight is deeply important and appreciated, and as we continue to pursue our vision of communities free of domestic violence and sexual assault. The intent of this annual gala is to honor and recognize various individuals or organizations that have contributed to our work during this past year. I want to say a deep and heartfelt thank you before we go forward to each and every volunteer and staff member and board member and whoever else that has helped put in the countless time and effort to bring this event about. Your contributions have been priceless, so thank you very much. The central award of this evening will be our Legacy Award, given to recognize a significant contribution to the growing legacy of Canyon Creek and its work. We thought, who better to give our first ever Legacy Award to than the founding board of Canyon Creek? And so, 25 years ago, this year, 25 years ago, incredible individuals volunteered to take the responsibility of starting our organization and building an emergency shelter for women and children who were fleeing domestic violence. 2 years after their work began, the shelter was dedicated and began operating as Canyon Creek Women's Crisis Center. The founding board members' names are listed in your program. We encourage you to look at them a lot tonight. We welcome those founding board members who are here with us tonight or their representatives. We honor those who could not be here, and we fondly remember those who have passed on. In honoring the founding board, we also acknowledge the advisors, consultants, partners, officials, and many others who supported them in their goal and who willed Canyon Creek into existence. Before we proceed with our program for the evening, we want to encourage you to visit our silent auction in the back of the room, which will conclude at 8 p.m. this evening. We also have a display in the back where you can learn how to sponsor the renovation of a room at the shelter. And we also encourage you to take a moment and review our prevention display. This violence can and must be prevented, and Canyon Creek Services wants to become as well known for its prevention work as we are for serving survivors. Feel free at any point during the evening, during the program or otherwise, to take a stroll to any of these displays. In preparation for this gala, we interviewed several members of our founding board about the experiences they had in starting this organization 25 years ago. We've prepared a few brief selections of those interviews, which will be shown at different points during the program. So we're ready to move forward. Again, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Anybody who was on the board was there because they wanted to be.
And I really don't think that in the beginning that we really realized what we were getting into.
I didn't realize just what a need there was, how pervasive the problem was.
There were plenty of people that were, that needed the service.
I think you had everything all over the board, like, why would we need that? We don't have that much of this, do we? People without any knowledge that it might exist. You had other people who, either through law enforcement or social services or their own family, who had a real knowledge of the need.
It was still something that was not really talked about publicly.
I went up to see where this place was on Main Street and was just appalled at what they were using for a shelter for women who had problems.
But I went to the shelter, and I remember seeing that it was an old structure, and the rooms were tiny. And then I saw those that were in the shelter, and they were me. They were me.
And here was this young woman with this little child, and there was just this bed in there and nothing else. It just stuck with me.
Why don't you put together a board and we'll just build a new shelter, and that's what our community needs. So I called on one of my most trusted and intelligent friends, and that was Bernice.
I really felt like the community needed that, and I wanted to play a role and see if I couldn't help that happen.
And so someone thought maybe the mayor's wife should go ahead and be on the board.
And when I heard that they were starting to get this going, I thought that would be a really good thing for the community, something that was really needed. And so that was why I presented myself to be on the board, basically.
She was in an ecclesiastical position that allowed her to work directly with women in her community. So she jumped into this wholeheartedly.
As the discussion started for the need for a new shelter, Linda said to me, would you like to be a part of helping bring the shelter about?
It would be nice to be able to really serve people in these various basic areas.
It would be more than just a shelter. And I was really excited to have a place to do children's groups.
I think we all had an end goal in mind, that we would have a good, safe facility that could be staffed and would serve our county and then, to some extent, the surrounding counties in the area.
I think that was part of the energy, is that we're doing this for women who need it because of their situation. So we did.
Hello, I'm Michael S. Levitt. I've been on the Canyon Creek Board for 6 years. For Canyon Creek, the cooperation, support, and partnerships we have with individual communities is vital. We want to start honoring individual communities with our Community of the Year Award. Though we serve all of Beaver, Garfield, and Iron counties, Cedar City has remained the home base for our organization. The support of Cedar City's government and citizens has been key to our ability to serve survivors. Additionally, the city itself set aside line item funds in its budget that are specifically directed to Canyon Creek. We thank Mayor Miley Wilson Edwards for making this possible. We express deep gratitude to the community of Cedar City and its government. And we are honored to present Cedar City and Mayor Wilson Edwards with the 2019 Community of the Year Award.
Good evening. My name is Kate Sorensen. I'm the Victim Services Director for Canyon Creek Services. Our organization benefits from the amazing efforts, passion, commitment, and abilities of all of its employees. Each employee is necessary in carrying on the work and in moving us all closer to our vision of freedom from violence. Tonight, we would like to recognize the dedication, growth, and accomplishments of one of our employees. Sorry, I'm getting a little teary. Maria Vader began as a shelter staff, then worked as a victim advocate, and now serves as our shelter manager. Maria is fierce. She takes on any challenge in front of her. She is available for her staff, and she is not afraid to learn and apply new information. Her passion is invaluable, and her smile is contagious. We are pleased to give the Employee of the Year Award to Shelter Manager Maria Vader.
anytime you do something like this, you would be discouraged because it doesn't go along smoothly, for sure. There were several setbacks and disappointments and people who fell through, who made promises and those kinds of things. And so, of course, we got discouraged because this is ever going to happen.
It wasn't really haphazard, but it was kind of nice chaos because there was so much. I mean, you needed everything at once.
To hear that reality and to know it was here. This wasn't in New York or LA. This was in Cedar City.
There's always discouraging things because sometimes you want certain people that can help you that don't want to help you or think, this isn't something, because it was really new at the time.
The whole thing was uphill.
Once this started, we got going and we just decided this would be a good project and we were going to make it work.
Professional staffing, if you're going to be responsible for people's lives in certain kind of contexts, what's your social services background or your psychological background.
And sometimes we did have disagreements. And I think that's normal and natural.
If this particular woman comes with children, she leaves a domestic situation, she's not going to return to that. So what happens after she's sheltered?
So I served as treasurer, which wasn't much. It was some petty cash in a box. I mean, it just wasn't all that much.
In a way, it was almost the fun part, was to see what we could get, how much money we could get, and what we could do.
And we were just trying to get money anywhere we could because we knew that we were going to need it.
We went to the Iron County commissioners over in Carolyn, and they said, we're sorry, we just don't have any money at all that we can get. We don't have anything, not one red cent that we could give up right now. And no, they just didn't have any money. Well, the big headlines in the newspaper the next morning was, Crisis Center gets not one red cent from the So man, they came right up with like $5,000 or $10,000 something.
People just were not aware of the need for that kind of thing. It was kind of like something that I think people just didn't want to know.
If they're abusive, then somehow it must be because the woman's allowing that to happen. Why doesn't she just leave? And that was really the mentality.
Yeah.
There was somebody had got spray paint and spray painted, but it said something like, why don't you lock the women up too, or something. They spray painted it on the plywood before the building was done.
My very first public meeting, when I spoke to a service group in town at their luncheon, we have a problem here, and a gentleman stood up in the back and he said, you're making a bigger deal out of it than it is. You're trying to make a problem where there is none. It's not true here. It's not like this here. And I was embarrassed. I was young and naive and wasn't even sure really how to handle that. I just kind of stood there and said, well, I've got facts that point to something different. And it was stunning.
Hello, I'm Candace Reed, and I'm new to the board at Canyon Creek. We recognize that Canyon Creek does not work alone. We rely on key partnerships with other local social service agencies, community organizations, law enforcement agencies, and many others. We appreciate the numerous professionals who work alongside us every day in addressing domestic and sexual violence in our communities. Jessica has the compassion and drive to help our clients get the justice they deserve. She helps them through hard times and explains the court process and proceedings in a way that they can understand. We are excited to recognize Jessica Kramer, the victim advocate for the Iron County Attorney's Office, with our award for Community Partner of the Year.
Good evening. My name is Rianne Reim-Schessel, and I'm the Development Director at Canyon Creek Services. As most profits, we have limited resources available to us, and the government grants that we do rely on sometimes have extremely restrictive qualifications. We celebrate all of those who choose to donate money, time, goods, and anything else in support of us to support the safety that we are striving to bring to each member of our community. We especially appreciate money, of course, because cash is king, right? So, I would actually like to invite anybody in the room here tonight who has ever donated money or in-kind services to Canyon Creek to stand. Don't be shy. Thank you. We express thanks to all of you and others who are not here tonight who have supported us over the years. But tonight we want to honor a local business owner who has consistently supported our work through the years and our needs by participating in our annual Dine Out for Shelter event over the past 6 years. That's not an easy thing to do. He has welcomed our intrusions into his business and made sure we have the help we need. We are giving our first Owner of the Year award to Central Pizzeria and Mark Baruffi, the owner. Here to accept the honor on his behalf is Samantha Goodman of Central Pizza.
Shelter and its services are only here because of people that have been committed and that had a vision.
The memory of working with those other citizens of Cedar City and county, and the great people that they were, and getting to know them, and the hard work that they did, and the kind of people they were, that they really, really cared about what happened in Cedar City.
So there were pockets, and those pockets had the passion to hang on when the apathy would have made it not move forward.
When I was involved with Kiwanis, we were invited, I think, to build a playpen or sort.
Playground.
A playground for the children.
Every contractor that we went to, we asked them to do it at a very reasonable cost to us, and a lot of them did it for hardly anything.
There's so much hope here that we're talking about this in such a way.
It was a really good example of people working together in the community. And I think that Cedar City, historically has been very good at that.
We had some really strong voices on the board, people who felt very strongly. Most people were there was enough trust that we were willing to share that. We didn't think alike, which I thought was very healthy. Then you raised the issues, the concerns. You got those I mean, they came into the discussion.
Most of the board members were dedicated to getting it done, and I don't remember there was any question.
At the time, it was quite stressful, but as I look back on it, I think that it's really pretty marvelous that we were able to do that. And we had some things that were like, oh my gosh, these things have happened, and now here we have to do this.
I just thought we were all such strong people that if anybody can figure this out, we could,
We really did, in the end, even when there was disagreement, we made good decisions.
And the snow had just fallen and the building was just framed. It wasn't near completion. And I remember driving by and seeing all of this lumber and the snow on it and thinking to myself, this is really happening.
Mom would always make it a part of our visit to drive up by the crisis center and look at the progress of its construction. She would share with us stories of women whose lives had been changed, children who she was able to interact with.
The shelter had been built. It was brand new. It still smelled like paint. And it was the dedication day. I look over and there's this plaque, and there's my name on it. But I thought, I was a part of this.
I think when we cut the ribbon and opened the shelter, I mean, we're there,
Our grand opening ribbon cutting was in the kitchen.
We finally got a place for women and children.
We ended up with a really beautiful building. At the time, it was the nicest shelter in Utah.
With all the work and all the time and all the good and bad times we went through, that this would come to be.
Good evening. My name is Tessa Douglas, and I have been on the board since 2016. Tonight, we are offering special recognition for our founding board members and their work. We also want to recognize the many volunteer board members who have provided leadership and oversight to Canyon Creek in its 25 years of existence. Would any of our current board members please stand? Don't be shy. Would all who have ever served on our board please stand? Anyone who has ever served on the board of Canyon Creek. All of you have offered invaluable service, and one current board member in particular has been selected by her peers for this award. Brooke DeWise joined our board about a year ago, and she immediately made her presence felt. Brooke has taken on project after project, contributing her incredible expertise and passion every time. Brooke has assisted us with a complex federal financial application for our grants. She is the head of the board membership committee. She recently completed a compensation analysis for Canyon Creek. She's active in board meetings, and she is always ready to do whatever else she can to help. We gratefully give our Board Member of the Year award to Brooke DeWise.
This song is called Leaving Kind. Thank you. If you were the light, I'd be the smoke. If you were to laugh, I'd be the joke that you would be mesmerized in every now and again. Waiting in the wings, I'd breathe the air. Lost in the clouds, and you'd be down there, falling like a feather toward you. Under an open sky, I knew things would get hard, but not like this. It's the waiting nights and the mornings hitting like fists. Pushing you away from me was the last thing on my mind. When I first met you, I thought my stars had a line. You were the fortune that I had to leave behind, 'cause you didn't know that I'm the leaving kind. This would get hard, but not like this. It's the fading nights and the mornings hitting like fists. Pushing you away from me was the last thing on my mind. When I first met you, I thought my stars had a line. You were the fortune that I had to leave behind, 'cause you didn't know that I'm the leaving kind. 'Cause you didn't know that I'm the leaving kind. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Johnny O. I've been on the board on the Canyon Services for about 7 years. And this organization was started by the volunteers, and it has grown largely because of volunteers. And our work today would be impossible without these incredible contributions of each and every one of our volunteers. Just this last semester, spring semester, we had 35 SU volunteers. Monthly average volunteer hours of almost 300 hours. Isn't that incredible? Over the years, hundreds upon hundreds of volunteers have come from the students and staff from Southern Utah University. Our work with the Community Engagement Center at SUU has greatly enhanced our organization's ability to meet our volunteer needs and help provide important opportunities for SUU students and staff. We're happy to have Gabriel Strand here on the behalf of the Community Engagement Center to accept our Spirit of Volunteerism Award.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, have you enjoyed the evening so far? We'd like to remind you of our silent auction that is happening in the back of the room, and again, will be ending at 8 p.m. tonight. So please, don't feel like you have to stay in your seat. We would love to give you something cool to take home as long as you make a bid for it. It's now my privilege to address you, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been a part of the program so far, particularly our performers. We do honor the women who have the courage to leave. We also honor the women who have the courage to stay. So, here we go. In my nearly 3 years as executive director of Canyon Creek, the history of the organization, its legacy, and its future have always been something that's been very important to me. One of Canyon Creek's legacies is that it has been carried forward by highly capable, qualified, educated, and experienced women throughout its 25-year history, including today. And in fact, during my recent interview with Bernice Rember, who was president of our founding board, she said this to me. She said, "I was totally amazed when I met you and found that you were the director over there. I thought, hey, we've either come a long way, or we've got the right man, or we've made a big mistake." And I suppose that depending on who you talk to, you can find support for any one of those conclusions. Canyon Creek has seen a great deal of change and growth. Since the time that Canyon Creek Women's Crisis Center was established as a community-based nonprofit, it has experienced steady and sometimes not so steady growth and expansion, especially during the past few years. In fact, over the past 6 years, Canyon Creek's total annual operating budget has increased by 264%. And we anticipate a 25% increase going into next fiscal year. We currently have a total of 28 employees, with the hope of adding 4 to 5 in full-time positions coming in July. About 6 years ago, the shelter itself was no longer able to house all of our staff and services, so an outreach center was started in the offices above Bullock Drug. We expanded into as much space as we could there, and now that location serves as the main offices for our organization. Today, Canyon Creek has 5 different departments within the organization: victim services, awareness and prevention, business and operations, volunteer programming, and fund development. But perhaps most importantly, we operate as a dual program, meaning that we serve both survivors of domestic violence as well as sexual assault, with a myriad of services and supports. We have grown our programming, including programming for children. We provide trainings, presentations, and events to raise awareness. We present on healthy relationships in the high schools when we are permitted. We present to our employers and organizations. We present to employers and organizations in the area about how they can support employees or clients who identify as survivors. We work closely with several other organizations and agencies in our area. We offer training and education about how to prevent this violence, and it can be prevented. Canyon Creek's service area does not just include Cedar City. As you heard earlier, it includes all of Iron, Beaver, and Darfield counties. We serve any and all survivors, regardless of race, color, ethnicity, age, sexual orientation, gender, religion, disability, or nationality. As a community-based organization, we don't have to require burdens of proof or evidence, nor do we screen people to determine if they're qualified for our help. We simply start by believing when a survivor tells us they have been abused or assaulted, and we go from there. During our last fiscal year, we served over 700 individuals, including 142 children. 169 of those 700 were survivors of sexual assault, and 202 received shelter. By the end of the third quarter of our current fiscal year, which ends this June, we had already surpassed last year's numbers. All of this growth, change, and expansion led us last year to finally move ahead on a decision that had been in discussion for some time: changing the name of the organization. We had heard from male survivors that they hesitated to call because we were a center for women. Other survivors said they didn't know if we could help because they didn't need shelter. Others stated that they were not in crisis, but simply needed someone to talk to. So, we tried to select a new name that would keep us connected to our legacy. Excuse me, I lost my place. That would keep us connected to our legacy, reflect how diverse our programming had become, and capture the spirit of what we are trying to provide to the communities we serve. We became Canyon Creek Services in July of 2018. We designed a new logo, which included the colors of purple for domestic violence, teal for sexual assault, and orange for teen dating violence. We created a new vision statement: communities free of domestic violence and sexual assault. From humble beginnings, we are now much, much more than a shelter. We are very close to becoming truly comprehensive in our services, meaning we will hopefully reach a point where we can provide all of the essential services survivors need and all of the prevention programming and resources necessary for the community, all within one organization. It may be tempting to hear of our successes and see our growth and assume we are adequately addressing the problem. I wish I could say that we are seeing a fundamental change, that the tide is turning. But the reality is that we still do not have the resources, facilities, and funding to do all that is needed. In our task to serve all of Beaver, Garfield, and Iron counties, we are in urgent need of additional space and facilities here in Cedar City and satellite locations in the other two counties. We need additional shelter space, especially transitional housing. We need funding that is less restrictive. In Utah, our funding comes from multiple state government agencies, all with their own requirements, some conflicting, and all with their own reporting and processing systems and protocols. In fact, we recently completed our grant writing season where we applied for our largest government grants. When all was said and done, we estimated that we expended about 463 staff hours in the application process. And almost all of our grants are competitive, and very few of the grants pay for those 463 hours. This means that all of our funds, if they're competitive, they're not strategically distributed throughout the state based on need or to ensure that all survivors throughout the state have equal access to standard services regardless of where they live. Rather, the money goes to those who are the best grant writers. The recent federal government shutdown nearly stopped the flow of 45% of our operating budget. We need to expand our sexual assault programs and resources. The number of survivors of sexual assault that we are serving is increasing at an alarming rate. We need more support in growing our prevention programming. Recently, we launched our Canyon Creek Services Work for Men initiative. This effort has two areas of focus: getting men in our local community more involved in prevention efforts and ensuring that male survivors have some of their unique needs met. The door for more men to engage in this work actively and consistently is wide open. Not all men are perpetrators of this violence, but almost all perpetrators of this violence are men. And that deserves more attention from men. I now share the following with permission. If I can get there. On a cold winter night in a small town within our service area, a young mother burst from her home and into the darkness. She had nothing but the clothes on her back. She was barefoot,
and clutching her small child in her arms as she ran. She was bleeding from her head, an injury caused by a blow from a baseball bat, her abuser's weapon of choice that evening. She reached a local business where an employee helped her get a little warmer and called law enforcement. First responders called us from the ambulance, and our advocate met her at the hospital. She was assigned her own victim advocate, who would be her main support and contact throughout our time working with her. Her advocate recalls, "I remember the first interaction I had with her. She didn't want much to do with me at that point. Why would she? I was a stranger asking her to open up about some of the most intimate details in her life. All she needed was a bottle for her child. So we started with that, a bottle for her child. From there, the uphill battle began." Her advocate built trust by listening a lot, validating and providing ongoing emotional support. All the while, this survivor had to be a mother, deal with her trauma and the total disruption of her life, follow a safety plan for her protection, try to secure an income, and navigate a labyrinth of agencies, paperwork, and legal processes. We assisted her in applying for food stamps and then reapplying when her card was sent to the wrong address. We were with her as she filled out an application for housing assistance since she and her child were now homeless. We supported her as she created a victim impact statement and submitted it to the county attorney's office. We celebrated when she signed a lease for a new apartment. As she struggled with symptoms due to her significant head injuries, she lost custody of her child. She moved into her apartment with some basic furniture that we were able to provide thanks to community donations. She worked to get her child back, following court orders and caseworkers' requirements. She had more medical complications, which resulted in a hospital stay that delayed the return of her child. She lived for each visitation she was allowed to have. We helped her as legal charges against her abuser began to take shape. We cried with joy when she was able to finally get her child back. We helped her fill out and file a protective order against her abuser. We were with her in court for the hearing while her perpetrator did everything he could to intimidate her during the proceedings. We were relieved with her when the order was ruled permanent. We helped her apply for victims' reparation money that would pay for a home security system. She worked with us in applying for heat assistance. We were elated with her when her son was able to begin the Head Start program. Her DCFS case was closed, and we celebrated. The trial for her abuser was delayed and the process prolonged. We offered encouragement. Throughout our time working with her, she sat with detectives and was asked to tell her story. She was asked to show her injuries so they could take photos to be used as evidence. She met with DCFS caseworkers and was asked to share her story. She was required to attend court hearings where she had to sit within a few feet of the man who had put her through so much pain and suffering. She sat with prosecutors who asked her to share her story and share it again in the event of a trial. Her advocate stated, "This is so much to ask of someone who has been through trauma, but she did it. And each time she shared it, her voice got stronger." I was able to meet with this survivor My staff are going to be stunned because I never do this. I was able to meet with this survivor recently. She smiled a lot and laughed. All her struggles are not done, and Canyon Creek is still here for her when and if she needs us. But she is in a new life. Commenting about her experience, this survivor said, "I would have never been able to get through this without an advocate. They supported me through every step. I want women to know that Canyon Creek Services can help you start a new life. I had no diaper bag, diapers, formula, shoes, and CCS helped provide that. They provided what I needed to survive. With the help of CCS, I was able to make it. And if I had known how much they could do, I would have left sooner. I have more support now than I have ever had in my life." Ladies and gentlemen, the mountain of work and help that has been provided by Canyon Creek over 25 years is incalculable. There is more to be done. So, we go uphill. We push against the apathy, the ignorance, and the resistance. We believe in our bones that someday Iron, Beaver, and Garfield counties will have communities free of domestic violence and sexual assault. That is our legacy. We have inherited it, and it is the one we intend to extend into the future. Thank you.
Women are very concerned about other women who are going through difficult times. They may have even gone through it themselves.
Really, all the meetings that I recall were all women. And the discussion was very centered on, they were tough, that this was going to happen, we're not letting go, but it was paired with a deep compassion and empathy and love.
It's women, who do the community work. That's just what women do.
Women, we stick together, don't we?
But it's all of our problem. It isn't, and women address it because they see it happening to their sisters. But men need to call each other out. They need to step to the plate.
I was grateful to be a member of the board, and I was very proud of all those people on that board who went out and were in the trenches.
She loved her involvement there. It was one of the last great involvements that she had before she passed.
Recently, I went back to the shelter. I hadn't been there since it had opened. There's these beautiful children that have these wonderful staff loving them, helping them. These families that are so grateful for this safe place. And that was a success I can't put words to.
We kept supporting each other, even with concerns, and working together. And I think people still need that kind of energy today.
And that it's been successful because you never know when you start something if it's going to flop or if it's going to keep going and grow. And you have been able to grow it a lot, and it's wonderful.
It was kind of like we birthed this baby. We didn't know how it was going to grow up, but you still were kind of proud of it in a way.
The work that you guys do, and it's a large group of you, the number of employees that you have, the number of grants that you must write, the number of women and children and men that you help must be really exciting to see that happen.
If we've got problems we need to tackle today, they too are just an idea being discussed around a table, and they need people to believe in it and hang on to it and move it forward with passion. And the proof positive is Canyon Creek.
And I think it's good that now that it's brought to the surface how much there is and how much needs to be done.
I'm really glad it's there, but I'm sorry in some ways that we're not a little better in society at sort of saying, these are our headaches. Let's figure out how to try to take care of them.
So that's my hope, that somehow the understanding goes. And eventually, maybe you won't need a women's shelter.
I've worked with different groups on domestic violence issues, and it seems to me that the workers are always women. And we just need a lot more men at the table working on these issues.
I think we did a fabulous job.
We did manage to really, do a good thing.
It was a good thing we did.
I feel like helping get that center built was the rent I paid for my having had the opportunity to live on this earth.
Okay, we're finally to the high point of the evening. We're ready to present our Legacy Award. Could I please ask the founding board members or their representatives who are here to please stand or raise your hands so the presenters can make their way to you. Would the award presenters please come and get the awards and take them to their assigned board member? Hopefully this goes relatively smoothly. One of our employees, by the way, is Kaylee Bronson, who is giving the award to her mother. All right. Founding board with Gotta do it. Here we go. With inexpressible gratitude, and on behalf of the thousands of lives that have been saved, the thousands of children who have been helped, and the thousands upon thousands of those whose lives have or will be changed by the work of this organization, we present to the founding board our first ever Canyon Creek Services Legacy Award. This concludes our program. The remainder of the evening is yours for socializing and donating. Thank you.